The campaign management tool in SuccessWare allows you to compare the benefits of jobs created as the result of a marketing campaign with the expense of running the campaign to see your true return on investment. Marketing campaigns set up through the campaign management tool will have a set start and end date, and you're going to have an opportunity to set up two different types of campaigns. The first is a revenue campaign. Revenue campaigns are meant to drive demand service work. And you can set up estimate campaigns. These are intended to create opportunities to quote installations and replacements. Why separate types? Well, it's meant to allow you to create different sets of goals based upon the type of campaign. Each campaign type, though, will display campaign results of the other type as other benefits within the campaign itself. Campaign management is going to involve a little bit of setup. First, you're going to need to create detailed lead sources that you'll associate with your campaign. These are going to be attached to the jobs that get created. You're going to need to create price book overhead expense items to represent your campaign-related expenditures. Then you're going to create your campaign, identifying the different lead sources that will be called in on, the different expenses, and the time frame, as well as your goals. Now, you're going to need to be sure moving forward that all jobs that result from the campaign are assigned a lead source that's been associated with the campaign, and that all campaign expenses are properly AP invoiced, and that they have a reference to the campaign on the vendor invoice. As mentioned in the introduction, in order to build a campaign, you're going to need to make sure that you have lead sources set up that are going to represent the different marketing pieces that are out there for you, and you're going to have overhead expense items. So let's take a look at how we set those up before we actually build a campaign. Lead sources are set up in the reference library. You're going to find this under Setup, Reference Library. And in the customer service section is where you're going to find your lead sources. Now, lead sources are organized into types. So this is a broad categorization. We've got magazines, newspapers, radio ads. This is just a classification. It makes it easier to sort through the list. But in my lead sources themselves, and I'm going to sort by lead source type, I want to make sure that each of the different ways that people are going to reference the campaign are represented in this list. So I might have different billboards that I'm running at different times of year, newspaper ads. I've got a Metro Penny Saver ad, Clipper magazine, which is a little marketing magazine that goes out around here. And I have each of my different radio stations listed that I'm advertising on. And I'm going to make these part of the campaign and people will reference them. Now, from an operating expenses point of view, in my price book, I want to build items that are going to appear on my accounts payable invoices as expenses for this campaign. And under advertising, I've actually built some specific items here. So I pay a local radio group for ads on different stations. You can be a little bit more generic with this if you want, but I'm actually referencing the individual ads themselves that are going to appear on these stations. Maybe you have different pay-per-click expenses, print ads. I've actually got a separate advertising source here that I've created to represent the money that I have to pay to create these ads. And these are going to be put onto our invoices, and we'll cover that in a little bit. Now, when I go and build a campaign, I'm going to find the campaign management tool under the main menu, Marketing, Campaign Manager. Now, this is going to open up a Select a Campaign window, and if you have none here yet, you're going to click New to create a new one. What I'd like to do is take an existing campaign that I've created and show you how I set it up. So I'm going to take this Get a Head Start on Summer Air Conditioning Install campaign. I'm going to give it a double click. I'm going to hit Edit here so that I can show you the different elements of information. As I mentioned in the introduction, you have two different types of campaigns that you can create. This is going to be a campaign that is intended to generate estimates. It says in my description, the campaign encourages customers who hear our radio ad and see our print ads to call for an AC estimate for a system to be installed in the spring. Now, as I mentioned earlier as well, if there are service jobs, demand service jobs that arise from this campaign, they will be tracked, but the focus of this campaign is the estimate jobs themselves. You're going to want to identify a date range for the campaign. So my campaign runs from 12/1 of 18 through 2/28 of 19. What the system is going to do is look at all jobs that are created during that date range and match them up with different lead sources to make them part of the campaign. Now I need to identify the lead sources that are part of the campaign. When I click Edit, this is going to take me into a window here that allows me to see all of my different lead sources. And this is where those lead source types work nicely, because I can go to the lead source dropdown and I can say I only want to see my magazine lead sources. It's going to pull up that list. I can check mark to include that item in the campaign. Same thing. I've already added my radio campaigns and my newspaper campaign. I got my Metro Penny Saver ad. If I want to see all of the items that are currently part of the campaign, I can use the selected items only, and this will show me, once I bring up all of my lead source types, all of the different lead sources that I've made part of this campaign. Then I need to identify the different expense items, and what the campaign management tool is going to do is look at posted accounts payable invoices that have this line item on them, doesn't matter who the vendor is, that reference this particular campaign. Because I could have expenses, I could be running radio ads that overlap campaigns. For each individual radio ad, I'm going to identify which campaign it's for. And again, this works the same way. I'm going to hit Edit. Now this gives me my entire overhead section to my price book, as well as my miscellaneous section and some others. I'm going to go to my category, only look at advertising. And I could go to my groups, but I only have an advertising group. And again, I can pick the individual elements that I want to make part of this campaign by just simply check marking them. Right. And again, selected items only is going to show me the items that I've selected for this campaign. In the area down below, I'm going to establish my goals. And for this, an estimate job campaign, I'm going to identify the number of jobs that I anticipate will result from this campaign over the course of its 3 months. I'm going to identify the expected amount of revenue that I want to generate from this campaign and an anticipated or expected closing ratio for these sales jobs. My goal for expense in this case is $14,000, so my anticipated return on investment for $14,000 in spend and $290,000 in revenue is almost 2,000%. Hopefully it works out that way. Now this area over on the right-hand side is going to show me my actuals. This campaign is already in effect right now, so started on 12/1. I've generated 5 sales jobs, generated $19,000 in install revenue, and have a closing rate at this point of 60%. My actual expenses, based upon the actual posted AP invoices, are $13,800 or 38% return on investment generated so far based upon this expense and that revenue. Now I had other benefits down below. So I actually had some revenue jobs that resulted from this campaign for $765 in revenue. Let's take a look really quick. I'm just going to save that, close it. Now I'm actually going to go up to the top here to my campaign dropdown, and I'm going to grab that winter campaign. So in this case, just showing you a little difference here. Create revenue jobs, got my date range, my lead sources, my expense items, and my goals in this case were to generate 100 demand service calls with a $400 average ticket or $40,000 in revenue. My anticipated expense was $19,300. My anticipated return on investment about 107%. My actuals for this campaign up to this point, and I know I'm at the end of it, I generated 9 jobs, $13,000 in revenue with an average ticket of $15,17. My actual expenses, $19,000. Right now I've got a negative return on investment. In this case, I was able to generate an estimate job from this campaign. It didn't close, I didn't sell it, so I had 0 revenue that came from that. When a campaign is finished, when you're done, you know you've put all the jobs into the system, all the AP invoices and such have been posted, you're going to be able to mark that campaign as closed. And what that's going to do is prevent it from showing up as a possibility, especially on the expense side, from being able to create new expenses for this particular campaign. So we want to mark a campaign as closed once we're fully done with it. There are certain campaigns that are going to be similar that you're going to run year to year. What's really nice about this is you do have the ability at the bottom of the screen to choose Save As. And when you do so, it'll basically let you take all of these attributes and just simply create a new name. I can make adjustments, adjust the dates and so forth, but I don't have to build the entire campaign from scratch each time. In order for a campaign to properly calculate the information to give you your return on investment, you need to be adding your expense items on AP invoices. And for one of my campaigns, so let's jump back in here really quick, and I put my button up top. For my Getting a Head Start on Summer AC Install campaign, again, I have my series of expense items here. Now, I just got a bill from the company that builds my ads for me, my print ads and my radio ads, for an additional expense. So under payables, I'm going to find that particular vendor. And in this case, easy way to sort through your vendor list, look for vendor types. Advertising vendors, I get a small subset. And Farm is the company that does the creative work for me. So I'm going to create a new invoice for this vendor. The invoice date is today. I'm going to put in the vendor invoice number off the document and then add my line item. And for me, this is my creative. And it tells me here, so this item number is included on multiple open campaigns. Do you want to assign it to a campaign? And I do. So when I click yes, it's going to let me choose which campaign to associate it with. And it's going to be part of my Summer AC Install campaign. And I'll show you where that is as we complete this data entry here. So I'm going to post this against my admin department. And the cost of that campaign or that creative work was $200. And you're going to see over here at the end of the row that this item has been associated with my Get a Head Start on Summer campaign. All right. I can have an invoice from Farm that has creative work on multiple campaigns. You can modify that campaign information on a per line basis if necessary. Now, to get this expense into the campaign, we're going to have to post the invoice, and we're going to see it reflected within the campaign now. So if I jump back into the campaign and I take a look at the details of my expenses, we're going to see all of the individual line items. We see the invoice number that they appeared on, and here's the one that we just did right here, Farm 12/11/2018, advertising for $200. That's now reflected in the cost of our campaign. Let's take a look at the information that must be recorded in order for the count and revenue for revenue campaign jobs to appear, as well as their other benefits. Reported campaign jobs and revenue come from, first, the job being created in the date range of the campaign, not just scheduled, but actually created during that date range. The lead source that's associated with that job must be part of the campaign, and the reported revenue for that campaign will come from the total of the posted invoices for those jobs. Other benefits related to a revenue campaign will be sales or estimate jobs that are created in the date range of the campaign with a lead source that is part of the campaign. You must then complete the sales summary or the sales debrief for those sale or estimate jobs, marking them as sold or not sold, and if sold, entering a sold amount. The number of jobs, whether they sold or didn't, and the total sold amount will appear in the other benefits area. Let's talk about what's involved with job information appearing for an estimate campaign. Reported campaign jobs and revenue are based on sale or estimate jobs created in a date range of the campaign, which reference a lead source that is part of the campaign. You must complete the sales summary or the sale debrief for these estimate jobs. You'll then mark the estimate job in the sales summary as sold or not sold. And if it's sold, you'll record the sold amount. Estimate campaigns can have other benefits as well. These would be non-sales jobs that are created in the date range of the campaign with a lead source that is part of the campaign. The invoice for the job must be posted. The count of the jobs and the invoice total will be reported in the Other Benefits area of the campaign. Let's take a look at those requirements in SuccessWare. Here, I've started creating a job for a customer who's calling in with a heating problem, and I haven't reached the point of recording the lead source yet, but this is where we're going to capture the information. Now I'm doing this through call taking. We'll do our next example, building an estimate job using the job form. But here I'm going to choose my lead source type. I've asked the customer, where did you find my phone number? She told me I heard the radio ad. I asked what station. She said it was on WBEN. Now that lead source is associated with my campaign, so it's going to make this job part of the campaign. I'm going to go finish recording my information. So we've got a no heat situation. I'm going to take it to my schedule. Get it on our board for today. Couple of things that have to be done. First and foremost, the appointment must be completed. So the job has to be closed. Time card entries recorded, whether this is happening through remote or directly in the office. So we headed out to the customer's place at 12:15, got there at 12:30, wrapped up at 1:45. When I post, I'm asked if I want to complete and close the job, and I do. So that's step number one in our process. In this case, we discovered that the customer had a bad gas valve, and I've pulled up and completed the invoice. And I've got my revenue here, and this needs to be posted. So I'm going to post the invoice, and that's now going to be counted as part of our campaign. Now, I'd like to do another example, and in this case, I'm going to create an estimate job. And again, this campaign that I'm running is an estimate campaign, but remember, jobs that are revenue can be posted against estimate campaigns and vice versa. So first and foremost, I'm going to select my class of work, and in this case, I've got a job class called sales that is marked as is sales estimate. And the customer is calling in response to our winter AC special, so they're looking for an AC estimate. So remember, we have to select a lead source that's part of our campaign in order for this estimate job to become part of the campaign. So I asked, where did you hear about this? Customer tells me that they were looking through their Clipper magazine. So I'm going to select magazine, and that limits me down to only one choice, my Clipper magazine ad. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish adding the elements of this job and get it on the schedule. Now the job has been created and scheduled, and I've already put a quote into the system. So just as a quick look, just added a simple line item. It was really for me about getting the dollar amount on here. So I built my quote. Now I want to complete this like I do any other job. So we're going to put in call progress. We have an on-site time and a completed time. I've posted that time card entry. I've closed the job. Now the step that's important here isn't just building the quote for an estimate job, but we have to complete the sales summary. To do so, we right-click on the job and go to Job Summary. And on the Summary tab, we can see here that we've already got the estimate date information, the quote amount, and now we have the opportunity to indicate whether it's sold or whether it didn't. So I'm going to fill in some of the reporting information. So we gave a quote. The result was that it sold. I'm going to check mark that it's sold. So this is the important part here. I'm marking that it's sold. The sold date in this case was the 12th, and the sold amount is listed. Now, if I create the job at this point, that's fine. This is where the estimate information is coming from, though, in the campaign. So let's go take a look at our results. So there are a couple of different ways that we can look at the results of our campaign. We can look at detail directly in the campaign form itself, and we can run reports. So let's go take a look. I'm going to open my campaign manager. It's going to bring up my list of campaigns. And let's start with our fall get ready for winter campaign. Just take a look at some of the detail on how we can view that information. So again, if I only want to look at the information related to this campaign itself, I have a lot of it right here. It shows me the number of jobs that were generated and how much revenue, what the average ticket was, and I can compare those against my goals. I see my actual expenses compared to goal, and I see my return on investment compared to anticipated. If I want to view the detail for any of this, I can click on the detail button, and it's going to bring up a list for me of all of the items that make up that count. So in this case, I had 9 invoiced jobs that referenced these lead sources as part of the campaign. The revenue detail, if I give it a click, shows me the same list, but now I'm just seeing some different columns of data here showing me the revenue associated with this. Now in each case, I can preview, so I can generate this as a report, I could print, and I can export. And in this case, I can pull this out to an Excel file. Every one of the values with the word detail next to it is going to show me this information. So remember, we talked about other benefits. In this case, I had one estimate job that resulted from this revenue job campaign. I could look at the detail. I have one sales job, and it did not sell. At the bottom of the report, there's a report button, and this is going to give me a campaign report, which gathers all of this information together. All of my detail of the campaign, my goals, and my actuals. The blue underlined areas represent items that I can click on and view the detail that goes with those. Now, in addition to being able to run a report on an individual campaign, we can also go to our report gallery, and under marketing, we have our campaigns report. Here I can look at all campaigns in a specific date range, or I can look for a specific campaign and view the report just for that campaign. So here is the estimate campaign that we've just been doing some additions to. So our goal here was to generate 75 sales jobs. So far we've generated 8, 290,000 in revenue, so far 34,000. We have our expenses and our current return on investment along with our anticipated return on investment. Now in this case, we had 8 sales jobs. We can see how many of them sold. And we had 4 revenue jobs that resulted from this campaign. And again, we can give that a click and take a look at the jobs that were created from that. And again, different detail depending on what we click on. So this is going to show me the revenue that came from each of these other benefit jobs. Remember, with this or any other feature of SuccessWare 21, if you have questions, would like a little more assistance, give a call to our support line at 888-251-2779.